we're in a position of doing things and being pathfinders to make discoveries that haven't been seen before. But when you go to the becoming more and you experience somebody else's highest states of consciousness and you start to let it in, oh, that opens up other possibilities. And it's exactly what you're saying when you feel these openings.
So
Thank you.
welcome, Richard. I am so excited to chat with you about the next Becoming More, because this
Oh,
will
yeah.
be your third Becoming More. So I want to know, how does that feel for yourself? How does the evolution of becoming more, how is it becoming more itself? And how are you experiencing that?
Okay. The workshop evolved over a long period of time, decades actually, to even discover that this was possible. But it continues to affect me personally, and it's causing me tremendous shifts in my life and to be coming from a much more joyous place in my life. And I'm even going to shift some big things that I'm doing because I'm inspired. And when I started, it's like you're beginning a journey, but you don't know where it's going to take you. And so you just have to pack your bags and be willing to go where you go. But I think part of the surprise of becoming more is if you are feeling completely in control and somebody loves you, they may love you in a way that you're not accustomed to loving yourself. That makes sense?
Mm.
You know, you're experiencing a kind of love you're not familiar with. And if you let it in, you have to change. You can't stay the same person that you were if you're going to let yourself be fully loved. And becoming more is a little bit like that because you're receiving a spectrum of other people's love and you can't control it. Now, either you resist it and block yourself from experiencing the totality of it, or you let it in and you let yourself change. And I'm experiencing profound repercussions from the two seminars. See, the becoming more is, we don't call it a workshop anymore. We're calling it an experience. It's not so much about taking notes. It's about experiencing the work because you're being changed. And the experience continues to have an impact long after the workshop is over. And I'm experiencing it very strongly the last couple of weeks because I finally allowed myself more of the download that I'd been getting to make some huge changes in my life and huge directional changes as well, so that I can fulfill my chosen destiny. And that's what this is about.
Mm-hmm. Very cool. I know I'm starting to feel that too. The shifts. And I mean, it was a big part of my story was this control and needing to control. And I appreciate like what you said before, once you're loved in a way that you're not used to, it almost makes you kind of stop and take a look at everything. And then in that moment, and this is something I'd love to chat with you about, in that moment, I feel spun around and I feel grief.
Yeah, it can happen because we develop strong identities. Identity isn't just what you think about yourself, it's how you feel about yourself, what you believe about the world. It's tied into dozens and dozens of large and small beliefs. And it's generally the hardest thing for anybody to do is to change a core belief and their core identity. And you think, well, I'm a person who feels this, who believes this, who acts this way. And maybe that isn't optimum for you. In fact, it never is, because there's always a better feeling place than where you are. It's always possible to become more. And as you receive these gifts from other people through our entire chakra system, through this work, we are always challenged. And sometimes the outer reality is going to work with us to get us to the point of such frustration, stuckness, anger, hurt, whatever it is, to get us to move on. And either we listen to that, oblige it, and make the changes, or we stay stuck. And the becoming more is really graceful and beautiful because what it does is it gives you an opportunity to directly feel what someone else's energy and love feels like. You get to actively experience how someone else gives love and let it in your body. It's not intellectual, but it's a body sensation.
Now, is this the main reason why it's an in-person workshop? Because we've
Yeah,
had a
that
lot
is,
of people asking for
I know.
virtual or more options. Yeah, you're having it in person.
Yeah, I really struggled with that for a couple months. I kept making calls and trying to figure it out and working online and saying, is there any way I can have people virtually do this workshop where you show this person's picture and then 2 minutes later you're now talking to that person and you're connecting with them directly? And no, the internet is not set up the way we do it. We're going to have these inner and outer circles at the workshop where people are face to face with one another. And after 2-3 minutes, you switch partners, and then you switch again, and you switch again, and you keep sharing these gifts with each other. It's a spectacular experience, but there was no way to do it online. And I really tried. Maybe somebody will come up with a different technology where we can do it. And the other thing is, if you make the effort to be in Cancun, it's going to be so worth it because we are at an exquisite retreat center. I was there a year ago and everybody by the second day was just feeling so good. We're connecting with ourselves. So the people who hadn't studied quantum touch well, we're providing a 2-day workshop where people are going to learn basic quantum touch. Even if you've already studied it, it'll reinforce it because you need to be relatively good at running energy to be effective with the becoming more. Then on Saturday and Sunday, we're going to do the becoming more workshop. And we're also going to, like for the first 20 minutes, even before the workshop begins, we're going to help people amplify their energies because when people are running energy really well, they get a much more beneficial effect from and to each other. Then on Monday, for the very first time, Deborah Guerra and I are going to be providing a brand new workshop that we call Becoming Ageless. This is spectacular. On an interview with Henry Ferguel, Deborah Gare, Jennifer Taylor, my business partner who runs Quantum Touch, and myself. And we have all been using Quantum Touch for well over 20 years. And what was remarkable was none of us look our age or even close. Deborah and Jennifer both look like they're maybe in their mid to late 30s. They're both about 53, 54 years old. Henry, she looks like she's probably early 50s, I would guess. And she is, I think, 74, 75. I think 74. And I will be 76 in a month. And I don't feel age. I'm stronger than I was in my 20s and 30s. I made a video a few months ago of doing 50 perfect push-ups. Not fast, not these things, but all the way down, all the way up, push-ups, because I don't feel age. So even if you don't want to take the workshop, here's a big piece of information. Just running energy every day through your body as basic quantum touch will help slow the aging process. But knowing that, what if we amplify the energy to entirely new levels? So I was inspired to create this technique we're now calling the infinity vortex. And I was talking to Deborah Gare, and she had come up with the same technique on the same day that I came up with it. Her inspiration led her to the exact, and it's so powerful. It like leaves basic running energy in the dust. So I've been chatting with ChatGPT for a lot of reasons. And I was asking it, I said, I have this hypothesis that aging is primarily entropy. And tell me if this makes sense to you. That aging is primarily the dissipation of the telomeres, which are these little caps at the end of the DNA that prevent it from degenerating, from the denigration of DNA itself, and the toxicity in the body. But I know that there are techniques that increase the telomere length. The body has the intelligence to detoxify itself and to heal damaged DNA.
Mhm.
Guess what? Quantum touch can do all three of these things. Quantum touch accelerates the body's self-healing mechanisms. Well, if it has a self-healing mechanism to heal damaged DNA, it can certainly do that. The body has a self-healing mechanism to detoxify. Well, that's part of the whole thing. And many techniques have shown to be able to lengthen telomeres. And we have never applied the highest level of power of quantum touch to slow, stop, and potentially reverse aging. And now that we're on it, we're beginning to see evidence that this is really possible. Now, we're also going to be doing group sharing in this workshop, where we're going to be doing age reversal healing for each other. And Deborah and I have been brainstorming almost every single week for hours, coming up with new ideas and we've put together a beautiful manual. We are so excited to teach this workshop. And it's fun, it's easy, it feels good, it's self-healing. But I would also say you don't have to change everything all at once in your life, but you do need to be willing to make a small change every week.
Mhm.
Because if you're damaging yourself through your diet, lifestyle, and everything else, your work is going to be inhibited, impaired. You'll still be able to slow the process down. In fact, it was kind of funny because when I was learning quantum touch from Bob Rasmussen, Bob was this old, morbidly obese fellow. And people said, well, if you do quantum touch, I don't want to look like that. I said, quantum touch has been keeping him alive. Look, he's in his 80s. 80-year-old men in that condition don't survive. So you can maintain yourself longer with quantum touch energy, but you can do a much better job if you stop poisoning yourself, stop harming yourself. And the combination of the becoming more, so you actually have more motivation to live and to rejuvenate yourself, is quite significant, because ultimately everybody chooses to die. It's not, you don't have to be hit by a truck. You can step out of your body in a meditation and leave. But if you're motivated to be here, your body will respond, and the becoming more can give you more motivation to stick around.
And that's what I was going to ask you about, because you had alluded to that in one of the Becoming Mores about the intention of living and being here. And I think you said something like the key to longevity is wanting to be here, like in its simplicity form. So how does it play in with intentions?
It's really significant because when people lose their desire to live, we've seen 100 examples of this where a couple, one of them dies, the other one doesn't feel like sticking around anymore, and within a year, they're gone. Somebody retires and they don't have any motivation anymore, and they're gone very quickly. And on the other side, to see the other side of that same story, somebody decides, I really want to come to my daughter's wedding, or I really want to celebrate my birthday with my family, or I really want to wait for this anniversary. And then a day or two afterwards, they're gone. My grandfather had a great big party on the 4th of July. July 5, he was gone. So people wait to have a special event before they go. So if you can delay it or bring it forward, it's really our choice, and it's what we're doing. So ultimately, being able to access deeper levels of joy and intention to be here will certainly extend your life. But if you can include the energetics of raising your vibration to a high enough level, and we haven't proven this yet, so this is still hypothetical, it's our hypothesis. But I believe that if we can raise our energy high enough, long enough, strong enough, we can completely stop aging and potentially reverse it. We don't prove it yet, but I think we have enough evidence to suggest it's highly likely, at the very least right now.
So if you combine that theory with the becoming more, I
Yes.
guess part of it for me is just this allure of like, well, what is more? What else is possible? There is this curiosity. And then I would love to know your thoughts on, because I'll get like glimpses, almost like an image of a future moment or something that I would call a desire, something that, oh, that would be
Yes.
fun.
Yes.
And those have been happening a lot over the past year. Or suddenly I just become aware of something. And I would say to my husband, I was like, do you know people are actually doing this? And I'll just describe some random, I'm like, I didn't even know that was possible. And I've had that exact conversation with my husband many times. It's like this expansion in my mind. But I'm
Yes.
like seeing it internally and then seeing it in some sort of physical demonstration in front of me.
It really is true. And the thing to remember is we have been conditioned to be ourselves through an entire lifetime. And I have certain gifts that I'm really good at. And there are certain areas I'm lousy at. Really don't have access to. Each of the chakras represent gifts, abilities, talents, states of being. For instance, I met a man here in Mexico. He's a dear fellow, but he's a first chakra lover. What does that mean? He provides everyone he loves with safety and security. He makes a lot of money. He makes sure everybody's okay. He holds them like in this giant embrace of adoration and love with security. That's first chakra love. Second chakra would be pleasure and creativity and just feeling really good. The third chakra, of course, is emotional expression. I make it safe for you to have all your emotions. Now, there are certain ways that I'm really good at loving and other ways that I'm not very good at all. But when you go to the becoming more and you experience somebody else's highest states of consciousness and you start to let it in, oh, that opens up other possibilities. And it's exactly what you're saying when you feel these openings. I would suggest you take notes whenever that happens and just have a notebook of when you're noticing the opening so you can honor that as deeply as you can, because those are gifts coming from your higher self and the gifts that we received from all the people in the workshop or the experience. Those are ready to express themselves when you are ready to receive them. And there are so many gifts. I never feel like I can receive more than a fraction of what I get when I attend this. But this is the first workshop I've ever both taught and attended. And
Well,
I
and
can't wait.
that is the next question. Can you kind of talk about like what is like the energy of receivership? Like how do you receive? How can you allow yourself to receive?
What happens is we work through all the chakras in the receiving process, but it's not an intellectual process. What it is I'm tapping into my deepest gifts. And I might announce to the other person what the gift is, or sometimes we just give love and so forth. And then when it's my turn to receive 2 minutes later, I don't get it intellectually. I get it in my body, like, oh, I'm feeling something. Oh, I'm expanding. Oh, that feels good. Oh, I get it as emotion and I get it as body sensation, but I don't get it as an intellectual process. Oh, I just learned something about this or that. One fellow in the workshop from Ecuador, on a couple occasions, has shared with me an ease in learning Spanish. Y ahora yo puedo hablar español bastante mejor que antes. I'm much better at just rolling off and understanding Spanish and speaking it. But it didn't really help until I actually made a little bit of effort to get better. But once I did, it started becoming much easier. So it doesn't do it for you. You have to make the effort to some extent to say, okay, I have received this thing about a deeper level of acceptance or allowance or loving or being open and so forth. And in doing so, if I honor it and give it attention, I can actually then be more able to be there and receive it.
Yeah, someone had given me the gift of French And that is something I had the intention. I wanted to become fluent in French. And now where I live, there's a lot of French speaking people around me. And it's like suddenly I'm having clients who are in French and we're corresponding in French. Or I'm meeting a mom at the park. And actually, this just happened 2 weeks ago. I met this mom, random mom, never met her before. We just started chatting. Turns out she grew up in a French speaking community, so she knows French, and she started teaching me how she teaches her kids so that her kids can have that. So I could follow that same kind of format for my own kids. And then without even thinking, I responded in French to her. And I was just like, whoa, that was the first time I like subconsciously spoke French. And that really surprised me because I feel like I was still learning. So for that to be my response.
I had a dream where I was teaching a class in Spanish in El Salvador to Spanish-speaking people. And it was going really well until I hit a few words I didn't know. But I was still teaching the class in Spanish, and I said, "¿Qué es la palabra para eso?" You know, how do you say this? You know, but it was working, and so it's part of the process. It's what's exciting in quantum touch is that you discover that you have skills and abilities you didn't know. Like in level 2 quantum touch, and you discover that you can align somebody's posture in a few seconds without touching them. That's like a revelation. That doesn't even seem possible, but it's absolutely true. Same thing. We didn't know that we could share gifts with each other directly. And then because we got everybody's picture at the end of the workshop, we can send them all love, and you can continue to receive energy and gifts from all the people in the workshop as you send them gifts ongoingly. So the workshop doesn't end on day 2. Unlike most workshops. And then the becoming ageless is something you're going to practice every single day, because you're going to want to raise your energy to a higher level than you ever have before. And you're going to want to receive this gift. And it's going to work all through all glands, systems, organs of your body. And, you know, they say it in, I think it's, I gotta look at my notes again. I think it's in 1 year, 98% of what was your body is replaced. So you're different in a year. It takes about a month for your skin to be replaced. Why does aging skin, when it's brand new, the bottom layer of the epidermis is like 1 month away from coming to the top layer? Why is it going to maintain the same wrinkles and sagginess or whatever it is? Why not work on that deeper layer and have it come back fresher than the current layer? So we're in a position of doing things and being pathfinders to make discoveries that haven't been seen before.
Well, and if you just think about it, if our cells can regenerate and all healing is self-healing, and we now have this technique to access the energy, then why do we age?
Well, I think that's a really interesting question. Part of it is for 10,000 generations, the DNA has that program. Now, we can work with our higher self to reprogram the DNA, and that's part of the workshop, how we actually reprogram the DNA. And we also have a belief based on everything that we learned throughout our lifetime that this is what aging looks like, and I anticipate it. So there's a belief system attached to it. As we become new pathfinders and explore new possibilities of becoming ageless, and that's exactly what I'm experiencing. It's that I don't have any joint issues. I am taking no medications. I am much stronger than I was in my 20s. And I walk a few miles a day, and I don't notice it at high altitude going up and down hills. I can sprint. Like the other day, some car started backing up on me, and I'm going, "Whoa," and I just zip to the side, like as if I was 16 years old. You know, I don't feel age. I don't experience it. And so it becomes like a joke. Like, how old are you now? I say, well, the number is going to be in a month 76, but internally, I don't know, I'm not in my 40s or 50s. I don't know. Maybe I don't honestly know. And that's what ageless is, where that just becomes a number. So the separation between your chronological age and your biological age continue to separate. Now, if you get to the point where you stop the aging through energy, well, what if you get to the point where you can become 1 day younger each day? It could take you a whole year to become a year younger. So the joke is, and I'll repeat it at the workshop because I'm shameless that way, is that longevity takes a long time. You don't become old overnight. It takes a long time to become old. And if we can hold it back. And then when you want to leave consciously, because the worst punishment would be to stay in kindergarten forever. That would be the worst punishment. You have to listen to Barney the Purple Dinosaur singing, I love you, you love me for all eternity. But when you're ready to leave, you don't have to wait to get sick and infirmed or hit by a truck. You simply go into a meditation, connect with your higher self and say, let's go. Let's do this now. And you just step out and keep going. Just leave without having to be sick. So this is the inspiration. This is the inspiration where this goes. And if you have the opportunity, get your passport together and come down to Cancun. This is a memorable thing because we're only doing this like once a year now. And this is it. This is the time.
As you were talking about that, I just got the idea of so we're just going to outgrow all these aging stories.
Yeah, that's basically it. We take these old stories of well, when I was your age, and all that kind of stuff. And we say, screw that. And we create something brand new. We create a new path. That's what a pathfinder is. You find a new path. And at first, it's just a few people, and then a few more. And eventually, you get where it becomes common. And then eventually, everybody wants to do it. But with all these people spending billions of dollars studying anti-aging, and I've written to them, and they all completely ignore me because they don't believe there's any such thing as life force energy. So as well as they're trying to create ways of keeping flatworms alive longer and all this extensive research, they're leaving out quantum touch and life force energy from their ideas and calculations. And it's so short-sighted. So I send them photographs of what aging skin looks like, and you run energy into it for 10 minutes. Now, it doesn't have those crepe paper look to it anymore. You see pictures of people who have had what we'll call an energy facial, where you really run energy. And we're going to do this at the workshop. We're going to give each other some energy facials and take before and after pictures. But it's really dramatic. But there's so many things that they could be studying. But because they think that everything will be explained with math and physics, and this is outside of their belief system, they won't look at this. So we just have to let them be because they're not ready to explore this.
And there's just going to be a whole new generation. I think about this as I raise my kids, and I feel because I came into quantum touch because of my infertility struggles, but then the growth I've had since learning quantum touch has made me a completely different parent, made me a parent I didn't know was possible. I parent in ways I never would have had modeled for me, and very intuitive and in connection with my children. And it's really interesting to have this experience of how I've now learned to parent my children based on their needs, and then to find out there are other parents doing this too. And there's a whole movement. It's called conscious parenting and connected parenting. And there's all these terms for it, and people have written books on it. And I'm like, I've never read that book, but I'm still living, I guess, by the same principles. And the biggest thing, and you kind of talk about this when you talk about your life vision of when a child is I don't want to say overacting, but acting out, it's who can give this child love. And I've really changed my perspective around my kids if they're having a temper tantrum. It's not, I need to punish them and send them to their room or whatever I would have done, but really just hold that space and show them love. But then what comes out of that is a playful nature. And learning to be playful with them.
Yes.
And I mean, I feel like these kids are then going to grow up because they're going to have a completely different story. And I see this in
Absolutely.
my daughter. She has such confidence because she doesn't know not to be. Like she hasn't had any of those stories to tell her she can't be. And it's just
Exactly.
fascinating to know. I see that in my own kids, and then I can see that in other people too. So it's like there's pockets of people and it's spreading, which is really exciting.
Well, it's working with those who are ready and want to grow. And whether it's a lot or a few, we're here for you. And it's going to be an adventure because this is the ultimate adventure, is our own transformation. And there's nobody who's going to do it for us. We have to do it ourselves. And we have to be ready to be willing to stretch and go beyond what we thought we were and what's possible. And that's what this is all about.
I heard this one concept about energy. It's like accessing the energy isn't the problem, it's releasing it. Like we don't know how to release it. Or would that play into having that intention?
The biggest problem isn't releasing the energy, it's self-honesty. Because if people are not self-honest, they're not going to release the intensity of their emotion. And part of the becoming more experienced is to not hold back. And when I did the first one, I was holding back on the first day because I'm not accustomed to being around a lot of people who are grateful for me. Maybe they are, but I don't see them in my life. And being in a room of like 50, 60 people who are just so grateful that I've given them gifts that have changed their life, I was in a state of like mild denial and shock. And I was kind of numb. But by the second day, I had let it in. Wow, they really appreciate my work. And this is great. I'm feeling really happy about it. But at first, I was resistant because my self-image and the way I carry myself and the way I hold myself doesn't feel that kind of gratitude for how people appreciate what I've given to the world. Since it's out of my sight, I just don't experience it. So we're all challenged on the first day of becoming more because we're going to be loved in ways we're not comfortable or accustomed to yet. And by the second day, we're acclimating more to it. And it's wonderful. This is great. And as we allow ourselves to expand, then we can really let it in. So about difficulty releasing, I don't think it's difficult to release. The part that's hard to release is the intensity of the suppressed emotion. So how does it feel to not let myself experience that gratitude? That's painful. It's painful to not let myself feel that. So the release isn't of the energy. Energy is easy to let go of. People on the first day of a workshop with Quantum Touch are doing miracles, releasing energy. But to release your own pent-up energy on how you've suppressed the intensity of your love and how you suppress the intensity of your pain in your life and not let yourself feel whole and complete, that's where the blockage is. And that's why we say, don't hold back, don't hold back, feel it all. If you need to silently scream and create fists and lean forward and open your mouth and just go, yeah, scream, totally let it out. If you need to cry and just feel how loved you feel, great, do it, don't hold back. Because everybody's trying to be normal. I'm normal. And they don't let themselves feel intensity. And that's the blockage.
And that's something I see with my kids, because if they're sitting on a chair, they're not just sitting on a chair, they're wiggling and climbing off the back or doing whatever. And like, they don't sit still. I can see from observing my kids, I can see how conditioned we are to just be still or to act normal, because kids are always moving around.
Yeah. I mean, there's 1,000 unspoken rules, like don't open your eyes too wide, don't let your tongue hang onto your mouth. Don't make funny faces. Don't walk with your arms straight. I mean, you can come up with 1,000 rules that we're supposed to follow, and we just, okay, be normal. Am I normal now? Am I doing normal well enough? Maybe I'm not normal enough. Maybe I need to blink occasionally. Okay, now that's good. We think we're supposed to do these things, but it's 1,000 rules, not just those. 1,000 rules we're supposed to conform to. But when you start feeling yourself, you get freer.
Yeah, I love having that embodied aspect to it. I think that's so important. And I even noticed in teaching Quantum Touch, I've started teaching standing up and encouraging students to be standing up and just to move as you need to move. Because we need to move. I think that's really important.
Exactly.
Awesome. Any last thoughts or insights that you want to cover before the workshop?
I just think this is an unusual opportunity. And since it's going to be the first time we're going to be teaching the Becoming Ageless, Deborah and I are so excited about it because she carries so much wisdom within herself. It's extraordinary. And we each have like so many pieces we're looking to share. And I'm so looking forward to experiencing other people's energy because we're going to work on each other to help each other become ageless too. I can't prove it yet, but I really think we've tapped into it now. I really think we're going to surf that edge where we're actually going to start reversing aging. Now, even if we just held our age, that's miraculous. But I think we're going to take it 2 steps farther and start really reversing it and watching it go the other way.
Well,
So-
and that's one of the things I loved about quantum touch is it's the simplistic nature and it's using what we innately have. So it's available to us.
Absolutely. What I love about quantum touch also is that ever since I first came in touch with it in 1978, I have always, every single day, asked, how can we enhance this? How do we make it even better? What else can I learn? What else can I discover? And every so often, sometimes it takes 10 years, but I'll get a major insight. Oh my God, here's the next direction for it. Like level 2 was a massive discovery that we could work faster from any distance than even just touching a person. Or you can combine it with level 1 and it's even better. There's so many discoveries to be made. And that's why I encourage everybody learning the work to be willing to experiment and teach us, because I'm not the only person who's going to make discoveries.
I think that's what I loved about the Becoming More format of being in person is you're able to just have those conversations with people and everyone's in one room. And that was really powerful.
Yeah, we can't do it. We just couldn't do it online. Love to do it. Wish we could. It's not available. So the studies show that the more a person makes an effort to be somewhere or learn something, they tend to get more out of it because the psychological mechanism of making the effort, because you've got more invested emotionally to do it. But it's a profound workshop and it has profound impact.
I have one last question. It popped up in my
Okay.
mind and I was like, I need to ask Richard this because it's something that I question myself. Okay. So expectations are important. We want to hold a positive expectation, but then we want to let go of our attachment to the outcome. So how much do we hold the expectation or can you just explain those two concepts?
It's a balance. You can't help but have some expectations, but when you're in the moment, you just experience it. You know, you don't try to, once you're there, you say, well, let's see what happens. And it was funny because everybody had expectations when they arrived, but what happens is on the first day of the workshop, you don't really expect that you're going to be challenged. It's like, oh, I'm being loved in ways I'm not accustomed to. This hurts. This doesn't feel good. Because you're blocking it. Once you start letting go and receiving it, oh, this feels amazing. Oh my God, I'm experiencing an internal level of joy that's higher than what I'm accustomed to. This is really good. Oh, this is like a hot bath. Oh, it feels fantastic. So we all go through a process. And even though you have expectations, you still have to be responsible to receive. And it's hard or it's easy, depending on how well you allow yourself. And that's the challenge of the workshop. You need to receive. Even if you didn't receive during the weekend, you didn't lose anything. All those gifts are still there when you're ready to let it in. They're still there. They didn't like run away or something. They're just waiting for you to be ready to receive it.
Well, and I feel like that's a story that I hear a lot from clients and just people in general. And I hold it myself. It's like, oh, it's so hard. It's so hard to change. And then I'm like, can it be easy? Can it be? And then we just take this line from one of our children's books and it's like, with grace and beauty, it is easy. And it's like, we're slowly changing all of those. And I'm becoming aware of how many times I'm saying, oh, it's so hard. And then seeing if I can shift that.
Well, that's what we're here to do. We're here to show another path of growth. Well, thank you so much for putting this on. This is fantastic.
Thank you so much. I'll have all the details for everyone in the description below.